Okay, just got finished with the inspection. Going to do a review for you. That's the front of the house. I'll put that on the front of my report. Sorry about the glare. There's peeling paint on the window trim outside in quite a few places. You can see here. So I'd recommend someone, scrape it and prime it and repaint the window trim to protect the wood. There's no soffit vents on the house, generally to vent the attic, and the attic's been converted into living space for the most part. And I had no way to know if there's even insulation up in the rafters because it's all sealed with plywood. But ideally there would be venting down low, about 50%, and then venting up high on the roof, which there is some vents up there, but it would improve the ventilation in that area if there were soffit vents here. This is the dryer vent. Its little flapper valve is missing. It's laying here on the ground. So that's going to let cold air in. It might let rodents in. So I'd recommend that be replaced. A couple of downspouts deposit right next to the house, and that can put water under the house. And there was a bit of standing water under the house. I kind of think it was from the entrance, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But having an extension or a splash block here would be a good idea. The beauty bark's been put too close to the siding here. It's touching in several places, so you don't want your siding touching the ground. So I would rake that away to create a few inches of clearance. It allows insects to get up in there easily, and it also causes it to rot. It is concrete composite siding. When I was a contractor, I thought it was all concrete. It turns out it has a lot of cellulose in it, so you don't want it sticking in the ground. Same thing here. One foundation vent for the crawl space has insulation stuffed in it, so I'd recommend that be removed. This is the bump out. I just put my camera down there to see if it's sealed, and it's not. So that should have plywood on it, and ideally insulation. We'll talk about that more in a minute. It's peeling paint at the windowsills. That's your heat pump. When it's below 60 degrees Fahrenheit, I can't run the air conditioner, but I ran the heat pump while I was here, and I also ran the furnace, and they both worked fine. When they ran the lines from the heat pump through the crawl space vent, they cut the hole bigger than they needed to, so mice could get in here. I'd recommend that be sealed. More peeling paint on the windowsills. Same thing here. This front window on the right front corner of the house looks like it's taken a rock from a lawnmower or a pellet gun or something. That's where it is. Okay. So you want to have that window replaced. This is on the roof on the right hand side of the house. A nail has come up through the roofing here, so this is a hole in the roofing. I'd recommend that shingle be replaced. The chimney's not in use. It's completely abandoned. You could have it taken down below the roof line and roof over it. I would recommend a cap be put on it for now, just because mortar is very porous, so in heavy rains the chimney could get saturated, and then you could have staining on the walls on the inside that touch the chimney. This is just looking at the dormer roof there. So the roof on the south side of the house appears to be quite newer than the roofing on the north side of the house. So this is the south side. Generally it's in pretty good shape, except for that one hole, which is right in front of these dormer windows here. Right, I think it's right about here. So this is on the north side. You can see there's moss on the roof, and the whole roof is much darker. So I would recommend, because of the damaged shingle and the worn shingles on this side, I'd recommend you have a licensed roofer look at it with the idea of repairing that one and possibly replacing the other side. This flashing for this plumbing vent's not installed correctly. It's underneath the roofing here, so potentially water can get in there, and then it's under the roofing. This is what it should look like, so that water gets back there, comes out on top of the roofing. So have a licensed roofer fix that. This is the back of the hot water heater, and there's a pipe that comes off the temperature pressure relief valve, and it needs to terminate in what we call a conspicuous location, because you need to know if that valve has discharged or is discharging, and it just goes into the crawl space. I'll show you a photo of that later. But ideally that should be run over to a foundation vent to the outside, and then end with a little 90-degree elbow facing down so it can't scald anybody if it was to open. Whenever I see a hot water heater inside the house like that, at the same level as all the floor coverings, I'd recommend a pan underneath of it with a drain to the outside, so if it did have a leak, it doesn't ruin all your floor coverings. Also, because you're on city water here, it should really have an expansion tank, which is usually a big blue cylinder that sits here. It's a bladder that has air and a little water in it, separated by a rubber diaphragm. If you have city water, you often have a check valve or a one-way valve, so the water in your house is sort of it's a closed system, and then when you heat water, it expands, so it has to have somewhere to go. So that's what the expansion tank is for. It also, if you've ever been in an older house and you turn the hot water off quickly and you hear the pipes, go boom, that's called water hammer, and it would also keep water hammer from happening. It's just some technical stuff about the water heater. I'll blow that up when I get back to my office. It'll tell me how many gallons it is and when it was made, but it looks brand new. The stove doesn't have its anti-tipping device installed. I'd recommend that be done as a safety precaution. There's no fan in the kitchen above the stove. So it's always nice to have a fan if you burn something to get rid of the smoke and to get rid of the moisture as you cook. The dishwasher drain, which is this gray hose here, goes directly into the garbage disposal, and we don't do that anymore. It's possible to siphon dirty sink water back onto your clean dishes, and you might not even know it, but they would be contaminated. Now we do what's called an air gap. This is convenient. It goes right to the right of the sink faucet usually, and it's a little chrome dome with a couple slits in it, and that's an anti-siphon device. So if you were going to keep this sink, you'd have to lose this and then have one installed here. But I would recommend doing that. This is furnace information. Like I said, I ran the furnace. It worked fine, as did the heat pump in heat mode. There were some holes in the floor here big enough a rodent, a mouse could get up from underneath the house. So we've got that one screen that's compromised, and then we've got holes in the floor here. So they've got good access to the inside of the house. Stuffing these with steel wool was a good idea. I don't think they've been through a summer cycle with this furnace yet, because if you run the air conditioner, it's going to create condensation. And the way they have it set up, the condensation goes down this pipe and into this basin here that has a little float switch in it, and when it gets full of water, it turns on and pumps the water out this clear hose and out that vent we looked at a minute ago. And there's no power inside there. It's not plugged in, it's never been plugged in, and there's no outlet in this room. So I would recommend you have a licensed electrician run a circuit that you can plug this into so you can get rid of that condensation. I saw smoke detectors just in the hallways. I recommend one in every bedroom and every change of ceiling height. Electrically, you have a mix of grounded and ungrounded outlets. For the most part, the ones that look like they're grounded are grounded. They have 3 prongs as opposed to like this one that has 2. So you can look at that and know it's not grounded. I think I did find one that looks like this, 3-prong, that wasn't grounded. I'll show you. Another 2-prong outlet. The acoustic ceiling tiles, I have no way to know how old they are. So they could contain asbestos if you were going to disturb them. I'd recommend you get it tested and then follow the EPA recommendations on how to deal with that if it did have asbestos in it. This outlet in one of the bedrooms that's upside down has reverse polarity, which means the hot and the neutral wire, the black and the white wire, are switched. So I'd recommend you have a licensed electrician fix that. This is where it is. This is the living room out here, and I've come in this bedroom. This is that's the other upside down outlet in that same bedroom. It's not grounded. That's where it is. I was not able to find the switch that turns the front porch light on and off. This switch here didn't do anything that I could tell. So there may be something faulty in the switch, or maybe I just missed it, but I looked everywhere. I even went to the back porch and turned that light off and to see if they were tied in together somehow, but I would suspect the switch is bad. So have a licensed electrician check that out. This switch, I think, controls the light at the top of the stairs, and it didn't do anything, so Most likely the bulbs are burned out. That's, 99 out of 100, that's the problem. So replace the bulbs. If that doesn't work, have the electrician evaluate that and fix it. This is a picture I sort of developed for something that's not here. There's no carbon monoxide alarms in the house. This is generally where I would see them. They have to be in close proximity to the bedroom. So you're going to want to be sure to have the sellers put that in there before you call for your appraisal, because they'll charge you $125 or $150 to come back and go, yep, now they're here. So before you call for the appraisal, make sure that they've been installed. The attic was probably not intended to be living space originally. The stairs are really steep. There's also no handrail. I don't think it would be difficult to change the stairs without taking up a lot of extra space. A handrail would not be hard to install, so I'd recommend that for safety. Ceiling tiles upstairs, same thing. I don't know their age, so they could contain asbestos. This is a little single breaker electrical panel in an upstairs closet, and the label on it says Sylvania. And I know that Sylvania bought a company called Zinsco, which was a panel manufacturer that's faulty and dangerous. But I took a picture of this with my iPhone and sent it to my electrician, and we both agree that this is an original Sylvania and not a Zinsco, and so it's fine. I wasn't able to see any, I call them truth panels, any place where I could look into the framing of the attic to see is there insulation, what kind of insulation is it, that sort of thing. So everything's been sealed with plywood. We would hope there's insulation back there. The crawl space entrance is incredibly small. I actually laughed out loud when I took the cover off and looked in there. That's my flashlight, and it's not much taller than my flashlight. So some of the siding could be removed to gain a couple more inches. I was able to get in there, but it's just really small. If you ever needed a plumber to go in there, they're usually bigger guys than me. A couple of the heating ducts, as soon as I took the lid off, I could feel the hot air. A couple of the heating ducts have become disconnected under the house, so I'd recommend you have a licensed HVAC contractor fix that. They've also never been insulated, so it would improve the thermal efficiency of the system and the house in general if you insulated those. Also, the floor under the house has never been insulated. So I want to say something about that. Houses have like ecology, everything kind of is connected to everything else. And when you change one thing, sometimes other things get changed too, and you don't intend for that to happen. So there's kind of a lack of venting under the house. And the reason you want venting and plastic on the ground is to keep the moisture levels in all the wood structure below, at or below about 14%. And if you have good venting and you have good plastic, you can achieve that. So where I'm going with that is if you it's stayed dry down there because this whole thing's uninsulated, and you're basically heating the crawl space with the pipes, the vent ducts being uninsulated. So if you insulate these and insulate the floor, you've totally changed the ecology under the house, and then you would want more venting because it's going to trap more moisture down there. This is effectively drying out the house, which is a great thing, but it's an expensive way to dry out the underside of the house. So if you choose to insulate the ductwork and the floor, I would recommend adding more venting. There was some standing water on the plastic right near the entrance, and I suspect that the cover for the crawl space, I'll show you in a minute, it's flat, and I'm sure rainwater just comes right in there. I looked for plumbing leaks and things here. I didn't find any, so I don't think there's a problem with plumbing. Again, that's another picture of all the ductwork with no insulation. Here's another vent that's become disconnected at the boot here. This is on the far left-hand side of the house near the front left corner. Left, right, front, back is as if you're standing out in the street looking at the house. This is the pipe that comes from the hot water heater, and it just comes down here and probably stops right above the footing. So I'd recommend that be taken to the outside. There's a close-up. So this is the cover for the crawl space. You can see it's just flat, and I'm sure rain hits this and it gets down in there and then ends up on top of the plastic. So having a sloped cover would be my suggestion. And this is an outlet next to where the washer and dryer would go that needs a cover. And that's it. Thanks again for your business.